Hey guys, what's up? How are you doing? So in this session, we will discuss about schema when you onboarding an application in any IGA tool. So what we have discussed so far to recap. So we have discussed about benefits of onboarding an application in any IGA product. It depends on the product what you are working on. Some features may not be there. Yeah. Uh, so all these benefits you should be explaining to the application team so that they will be understanding what they are doing, why they are doing, and what is the purpose of it, and what business value they are going to get from this. Second, we need to choose the connector, and for that we need to have some discussion with your application team. So choosing the connector is very important. This is the approach which I follow, which you should follow as well. I don't think there is another connector you should consider in the middle. In case if you feel, please feel free to comment. Let us all learn from you. All right. So direct connector, which is out of the box connector, or next is fallback is API based. So if you have, if your application supports Schema API, that's very cool because you do not need to configure for each and every operation, unlike API web services connector. Next is database connector. Yeah, if API is not there, then you will try to connect to database. If application team is not ready to expose their database, which is risky, then you will go with AD or any directory based, which is cascaded provisioning. Finally, delimited file. If none of these options are working, then you will go with discontinued or disconnected application, where you will get a delimited file. But the problem here is you need to receive the feed file in a CSV or text file in a continuous intervals. uh, that we'll discuss later. Next is environments. For requirement gathering, you need to know which all environments you need to work on. As I said, dev or SID or UAT, you can take any one or two max. And production, of course, you need to work on. Environment details, so you need to ask IP address, host name, uh, uh, authentication, what kind of authentication you are going to use, basic authentication or OAuth or some token based. Then who is the application owner, who is the escalation owner. So all these details you need to gather. After choosing the connector, then only you will come to know what kind of details you need to fill so that you can establish a connectivity to your application. Next, schema. So what is schema? Schema is nothing but attributes, all the attributes you have for a user in an application. Okay, that's we call technically schema. It's not like SailPoint terminology. It's a universal terminology. We call it as a schema means, or in API language, we call it as payload. When you are sending a request through an API call, you need to pass the data, right? In we call it as a body as well. What is the body of the request? We call it as a payload. Payload is a nice word, and it is the common word used in API terminology. Okay, whereas when it comes to applications, we call it as a schema. Some application teams may not be able to understand what is schema means. It's nothing but list of attributes or collection of attributes. Sometimes application team doesn't understand what is attribute. Even attribute is nothing but then you need to start using different terminologies like, hey, attribute is nothing but a column or a field for a in your application for a user. So based on the audience you are working on and their expertise, they will be able to understand that. So if they keep on asking question like, what is schema, what is attribute, what is field, what is column, start explaining. That's okay, not a problem. No one knows everything in the world, and no one is not working the same way you do in the world, right? So it's okay. So last couple of weeks I've been frustrated because it's getting difficult for me to work with the application teams because they are not able to understand even basic things. So it was not helping me at all. It was impacting my mental health also. Then I started digging in into my brain, why this is happening. Can I change them? Not possible. Can I change myself? Maybe possible. So I started like let me not expect anything from the audience or teams I'm working on. Why should I expect? So let's say that you are working with some application team and you start expecting that they should understand this, they should understand that, the terminology, the work, the process you are explaining. When you have expectation, then only you will feel bad when they don't meet the expectation, right? So let us not have the expectation at all. Why to impact our mental health if they don't meet that expectation? Have more patience, increase your patience levels, explain them, and of course they will be able to understand. That's what I'm trying to follow. No matter, I mean, there will be levels, right? So I have been telling about schema. If they don't understand what is schema, then it will fall back to another level. As I mean, it's a below level, I would say it's a column, or I'll say attribute. If they don't understand what is attribute, then again one step down, you say that it's a column. If they don't understand that as well, one more step down. So it will go like that. And finally, what I do if they don't understand, I will show some web page. Everyone in the world is using Netflix or Amazon or some e-cart or some applications we are using, of course, like LinkedIn. So I will show some web application, or I'll show some user in SailPoint. What are the attributes they have are in your ICA product? So show them, okay, for a user in an application, let's say if you take HR system or Salesforce, let me open your user, how it will look like. So show him his details only or her details only in that application. Okay, some HR application or some other application. See, these are the different attributes you have in this application, like your first name, last name, department, etc., etc. Similarly, on your application which we are working on currently, user will have some attributes, right? Then they will be able to understand for sure. That's why, as I mentioned in the last sessions, it is better to share your screen and show them, because I used to learn this in my childhood education. In my schooling, they used to say like, one picture is better than 100 words. Yeah, trust me, that is so good. In the discussions or meetings, not everyone can understand what you are trying to explain, right? Sometimes it is complicated and complex, they will not be able to understand. Then what I do, I share my screen. Sometimes I paint as well. I'll open paint and I'll show them. I would say there should be a culture, maybe in future. um, I mean, I use my iPad. I'll draw and I'll show them. There were some discussions where we were discussing about complex scenarios, and it will create multiple possibility. I mean, a lot of possibilities were there with that scenarios, considering the data. It's difficult, right, to understand all of them. So what I did, I connected my iPad and I have joined the meeting from my iPad. I shared my screen and I did draw everything, and I have shown like a whiteboard session. They did understand easily. There was no confusions at all. Okay, so I hope in future, I know it's difficult to arrange a tablet for every employee. It's going to cost a lot, but instead, maybe in the coming years, hopefully we will get laptops. I don't think there are desktops anymore in the world, any organization. Everyone is using laptop only, and with a extension or screen, external display we are having in our office. So you carry laptop to your home and you come back, right, with the laptop. So that's how I think. So all the companies I have worked and I have heard, I will be surprising if I hear that still some companies using desktops. Anyway, that's their issue, I would say. So coming back, so I hope that uh, sooner they will replace the laptops with touch laptops, where you get some stylus, they call nothing but a pen, pencil, Apple pencil, like that. So you can draw and you can explain. So all the MS Office applications they support pencil. You can draw and you can show them. Already Microsoft Surface laptop, it is touch and you need to purchase that stylus pen separately. You can draw on it, Microsoft Surface, but it is too expensive. It goes around 2.5 lakhs something. So yeah, I hope so in future you get this touch laptops for everyone, and you will be able to draw and show them. Or even if it is not touch, at least it should detect this stylus pen movements, and it should be able to, you know, draw and show. Trust me, guys, it will reduce the meeting minutes drastically. Not every situation, but maybe most of the situations. Okay, when you have multiple application teams, it is easy to draw and show them, explain them how it will work. Even the benefits of onboarding an IGA application, you should be able to uh, show the architecture of the user lifecycle management, right? I hope so. Now you can maybe thinking like there will be a cheaper options, right? Instead of these laptops, like touch everything. Why can't I use some drawing tablets, which is of very less cost, which will not have any display, but it acts as detecting the your movement and show that drawing in your computer. Still, it's going to be costly for the organization to arrange for all the employees. Okay. Anyway, coming back, so use these kind of ways to explain them, show them how it look like. Then they will easy, it will be easy for them to understand. So my point is, if you can increase your patience level for couple of minutes or couple of times and answer them with patience, then maybe you won't get frustrated. That won't impact your mental health even, right? I've been following, and trust me, it will help you. Anyway, coming back. So once you explain all this schema, what is schema, what it is for, then get all the attributes. Based on the connector you are using, if it is a direct connector like Salesforce or Active Directory, since it's a product, Salesforce is a product, it is same for anywhere in the world, for any organization. So SailPoint worked with, or any IGA product which has the direct connector, they did work with that product. They know what kind of attributes are there in that application in Salesforce, for example. So once you choose this out of the box connector, you will get all the attributes automatically. Once you choose the connector, it will display the schema attributes automatically, everything. Okay, so you do not need to touch them. Earlier, couple of years back, when I was working in SailPoint Identity IQ, so what I used to do, I used to copy paste all the attributes in that out of the box connector, and I used to show them to application team asking, "Are you using all these attributes?" But now I'm doing that anymore. I'll explain why. Then once you get all the attributes, I'll show you a bit demo so that you will understand easily. Identify unique attributes as well in that. What are the unique attributes? So yeah, there should be a name for that object, right? Unique identity for the object. Once you run the aggregation or any whatever the operation or synchronization, reading data from application, right? So it will be nothing but an object. So that object should be represented with some name, right? That name should be unique. So you need to find out what are the unique attributes. Otherwise, it will be difficult to identify which account is that, which object is that. Every object in anywhere in the world should have unique identifier. Then only you can interact with that object. Okay. So if you take in our living world, uh, mobile objects like humans, animals, everything, everyone has some name. Should be unique name as well. Okay, and every immovable object or appliances, accessories, everything has a name. Mostly everything will have a unique name. Then it's easy to identify and interact. Okay, so when you're technically working with different type of objects in any IZA product, if it doesn't have unique identifier, it's difficult to locate them, trace them, work on them. So that's why you will have unique identifier for each and every object, even for account. In SailPoint terminology, So we call identity and account. Identity and link we call. Identity is nothing but user object, which is the parent object created by getting data from HR system. That's the identity. And the link is the link. Identities link on an application. Users link on an application. Nothing but account. Okay, link is the technical word. Uh, Account is the business word. Okay, so you need to work on this account for a user. Let's say I have an account on Salesforce application, HR application, mainframe application, Active Directory application. So like that, how I have, every user will have accounts. So every user's account on each and every application should be located using some unique identifier. So you need to ask them what are the unique identifiers. When you have a lot of years of experience, nowadays I'm not asking much because I understand what are the unique identifiers. Some unique ID will be generated at application side. Maybe you can use that, or login name they'll say, or network ID, or email ID, or federation ID, something like that. Unique attributes will be there. Then you need to find the correlation attribute. Correlation is the technical word we use in SailPoint, both Identity IQ and Identity Now products. So correlation is nothing but connecting or mapping identity and account object. Okay, for example, if I switch to our banking system, so when you open an account in a bank, you'll open a bank account, right? Savings account or current or salaried account, whatever it is. So that account is nothing but identity of you in the bank. Okay, when you apply for debit card, the debit card is a debit card application in that bank system. Okay, so the debit card is one account for you in the debit card application. You requested for credit card, so credit card is another application. You will have an account in that. You applied for some home loan, car loan, personal loan, mortgage loan, like house loan. All these things are applications. Okay, so these all applications are connected to your bank account, which is nothing but identity. Okay, so now how, what if your debit card is not connected to your account? It is connected to someone else's account. Then whenever you swipe the debit card, money will be debited from someone else's account. That's maybe sounding nice to you, but it is really not. What if you are that victim whose account is getting debited by someone else's transactions? Okay, so how you connect the correct account to identity? How you connect correct credit card or debit card or loan account to the correct bank account? There should be some mapping, right? They might use bank account number for that. Okay, so when you apply for debit card, then they will ask you, do you have bank account? If yes, then what is your bank account number? So by taking the details from bank account number only, they'll give you debit card or credit card or anything you need. Okay, in India we call it as a CBIL score, where you will get score for each and every transaction. If you don't pay the uh, dues on time, bills on time, you will be losing the points. So if you don't have good score, then they won't issue credit card or loans, right? So how this is connected? Based on your bank account number. So that correlation attribute is bank account number. So this connecting the account and identity. Accounts are child objects. Identity is parent object. Okay, if an account doesn't have an identity, or doesn't or didn't connect with any identity, you can call it as orphan account, which doesn't have parent identity, or you can call it as uncorrelated account. So correlated account, uncorrelated account. Correlated account is nothing but which has identity, which connected with user. If an account is not connected with an identity, then we call it as uncorrelated account, or in business terminology we call it as orphan account. Okay, so that's why you need the correlation attribute as well. Again, I'm repeating, because of me having expertise, I'm not asking these unique attributes or correlation attribute nowadays. because I have a lot of expertise and I can understand maybe the similar applications I have worked on, or I can see the data, I can understand them. That's why I'm taking my own decisions. But in case if you're not able to understand, you can ask them. You can ask application, whatever the explanations I have given, what is all attribute means, why do you need? I'll show you why do you need all attributes in it with time, and unique attributes I explained, correlation attribute, what is the purpose I explained. Maybe in your IGA product, correlation attribute, correlation you reference some other terminology, that's okay. You can use that same terminology and explain to your application. Okay, let me show you some demos in SailPoint, how it will look like and why do you need that. So this is my SailPoint admin console. Now if I go to connections, sources, these are my list of all applications I have connected to different applications in my organization. In SailPoint Identity IQ, we call it as application only, but in SailPoint, I didn't know we have a different purpose for application. I wish that should be renamed, in my opinion. So they started using sources as the terminology. If you are from SailPoint Identity IQ, in the application in SailPoint Identity IQ is equivalent to source in identity now. Okay, application has a different purpose which is used in access modeling. Uh, we'll discuss that in a different session. Okay, so you can see list of all the applications which are connected. In case if you want to create a new application, click create new, and here you will have list of all connectors, direct connectors, and generic connectors are nothing but delimited file, JDBC, okay, skim web services. These are generic connectors. So direct connectors, you do not need to do much. Generic connectors, you need to configure mostly all the operations. So now if I go back instead of new connector, if I go to Active Directory connector, so if you see this is the account schema, these are the attributes. I didn't create any of these attributes. These are by default. Okay, or let me create a new source for you so that you would understand more. So create new. What do you want? Salesforce? Sure. Yeah, Salesforce. Configure. I'll give some name. Test Salesforce. You can choose anyone as the owner. And what is the connection type? Direct connection or flat file? So flat file in the sense you don't have any connection, you will supply the data. I'll go with direct connection and it needs virtual appliance. It has a different purpose and continue. That's it, your application is created. Now if you go to account schema, see all the attributes are by already available in the account schema by default. I didn't create any of these attributes because this is a direct connector. Salesforce is same in anywhere in the world. It's a product, right? So wherever you go, these are the attributes will be there by default from the product. So SailPoint worked with Salesforce or any IGA connector or any even whatever the connector even in Okta like Access Management or Azure Active Directory, aka also known as Entra ID. So you will see attributes like this. If you do not have attributes like this for direct connectors, then maybe something wrong with your vendor. Why they are not displaying or giving you attributes by default. Okay, so in case if you feel like one attribute is not required, see as the technology is going to next level, the access and our controls privacies are increasing more and more as the days goes by. Okay, so earlier we were having permissions like can you read the data, can you write the data, can you modify, can you delete only. Before that even that was not that much controls. So now this from controlling the operations to controlling attributes also, the modern technology has evolved. Okay, so in Salesforce, for some attributes, let's say call center ID, you might not have permissions to update this or add this or change the attribute. They need to give permissions. Yeah, trust me, back there in 2020 when I was working integrating Salesforce application, it was very big work. So I have learned all these things. Even some applications like Salesforce Service now, you cannot change some attributes. So they need to give you permissions at attribute level also. Okay, so that's why what we used to do when I was working in SailPoint Identity IQ, I used to gather all these attributes. I used to show them, or I used to extract all these things into an Excel file and I used to share with them. They used to confirm, okay, we are using this attribute. This attribute we are not using, you can remove this. Why do you need that? Even recently, we have faced that in Azure Active Directory connector. See, if you are reading, let's say, this attribute, permission set license, for example, this is an entitlement, nothing but access. We didn't cover what is entitlement yet in this series. We'll discuss that in a bit. Okay, so if you see this as an entitlement, it is nothing but access. This is nothing but access in Salesforce. Okay, so now this attribute you maybe they are not using. See, when they purchase Salesforce product, when your organization purchased Salesforce application or license or product, whatever the term you use, they ship with all these attributes. Now your Salesforce architect, platform architect, who has in and out of the knowledge, I hope so. So that guy worked and gathered the requirements from the business stakeholders, and that architect decided that this attribute is not required. They might not delete it, they just disable it so that it will not be useful. One. Second, they think that okay, we don't need this at the moment, so I will not give permissions to SailPoint. You do not need this. Okay. So then if you try to run aggregation is nothing but reading data from application, then it will fail. It will say that, dude, I cannot read. I don't have permissions to read this attribute, or couldn't find data for this. I couldn't find this attribute even. Okay, don't expect that error message will be this easier or simpler. Sometimes I've seen simple error message, sometimes it is not. So you always need to have consideration that maybe it is failing because some attribute you are not having permission, or that attribute doesn't exist. So what has happened to me when I was working in Salesforce, so they were playing around and they deleted one attribute. They felt like this is not required anymore for our organization, but they didn't inform me, they didn't inform SailPoint team. Okay, so then aggregation operation to read the data, we schedule it so that it will run every day. As a developer, it's not my job to look into which is running, which is not running at that time. So admin or support guy is supposed to monitor that, who is doing health check every day. But they didn't look at that. Since it is my application which I onboarded, couple of day, in sometimes like most of the times, often for a couple of days I look at them what is happening with their application. Let's say out of 50 100 applications, I onboarded 10 applications. Randomly out of 3 days or 5 days, I open each and every application, I look at their health of that application because I did the work, right? So then when I looked at into aggregation history, last couple of days, 3 4 days, it was failing. Then I informed my team why they didn't take any action. That is a different story though. I don't want to go into that. So I sent an email to application team. Guys, we are seeing an error that um, this is the problem. Guess you added this attribute, but you removed this attribute, but you didn't inform us. Can you confirm? They said like, yes, Krishna, we have removed this attribute. Then I had to remove that attribute from Salesforce application account schema. Then I ran aggregation. It worked. If you didn't understand why it didn't work, if you have a little database knowledge at least, imagine like you are running a query, select x comma y comma z from a table. What if either any of the column names you specified in your query doesn't exist in table? What it will say? Column not found. There is no such column with the name x or y or z something. then it will fail. Same thing with SailPoint, same with aggregation also, or any operation, any IGA connector you take. When you are reading the data from application, whatever the columns, for which columns you are reading the data, right? It should be available in the application side. Otherwise, it won't work. You can say that, hey Krishna, why can't it read data for all other columns except this column? No, it won't work like that. Intentionally, maybe they might have did that. If I could have been the product developer, what I would say, I will run aggregation for all users with all the attributes available. With whatever the attribute that is not available, I might have given it as a additional error or additional information or warning something. But I would not be stopping the aggregation. That's been kind side of me, but what these guys did is the right way, I feel. Otherwise, see, we react only for errors, right? Warnings, we don't take serious action. Maybe this is for good cause only. Okay, so that's why what we used to do, I used to get all these attribute and I used to explain with application team. Depends on the organization size you are working on. Sometimes you might not be able to do all these things what I'm telling, so you need to choose accordingly. Nowadays I'm not doing that much. I just run aggregation, and if it fails, then yeah, I'll take the necessary actions. In case if I'm getting data for attributes which I don't need also, that's okay. Maybe in future it will be useful, but the good way is explain this to your application team. Give, you can pull all these attributes. No need to be manually one by one copy paste. You can get them from documentations of SailPoint, or you can see this object in JSON in backend. If it is SailPoint Identity IQ, you can see them in XML. You can copy paste. Somewhere in the backend, you have the configuration for this application you configured, right? So copy paste from there and send them the mail. Ask them to confirm whether all these attributes are used or not. Or you ask them, they can pull the attributes and they'll give it to you. Okay, so second is they might have added custom attributes. So in case if they added permission set group, they will add like attribute name underscore underscore C stands for customized. So custom attribute, not customized, custom attributes. So get those attributes. So ask them, okay, once you decided the connector, show them this. See, by default these are the attributes we have. These are the out-of-the-box attributes for any Salesforce application. Did you remove any attributes when you have this Salesforce integrated in our organization? They might say that we don't remember, or we might not have that much data, or it will take a lot of time for us to go through all the old documents. Okay, fine. I'll give all these attributes, whatever we have. Can you cross check? Sure, they will cross. They have to cross check, though it takes time manually. Okay. Or what they can do, they can take all these columns and run some queries on their database. As I said, end of the day, every application has database, right? So they can cross check whether these columns exist or not, whether they do manually or automatically. However they do, it's their problem, not ours. Right? They need to confirm. Second, ask them what are the custom attributes they have added. Then you can add new attribute. Okay, if you want to remove, and if they confirm that some attribute is not there, then you can select this attribute, and then let's see if I click on this one, and I'll get this multi delete attribute, and I can delete it. Or you do not need to select even. Right side you have actions, you can delete it or edit it. Okay, this is about schema. Next, unique attributes. So when I'm running aggregation, this object will be created for account object is created for each and every user exist in that application. So for that, an identity should be there. So we are using ID as the account ID. So we call this ID as the native identity. If I go back to existing sources in my SailPoint, if I go to Active Directory, so accounts, you see account name and account ID. Account ID is the distinguished name in Active Directory, which is we call technically as native identity. The account ID we call it as native identity in SailPoint world. Either identity IQ or I don't know. Native identity we call for account ID. Account name, see ID might be there and some not understandable human, not understandable data. What if I give you some alphanumeric data, a long ID? You cannot understand for which user is this, right? That's why we have another attribute called account name. Account name is display name you can use, email you can use. Okay, you can use any attribute like that. It account name should not or need not to be a unique one. Account ID should be unique. In case if it is not unique, it will fail. You will get an exception. In case if a user at application side doesn't have value for this account ID, then also it will throw an exception. Aggregation will stop. Okay, so when your aggregation is failing, consider that maybe account ID is not unique, or account ID is I don't think you get an error if an account ID is not unique. I don't remember. But if a for a user, if account ID value, I mean the unique ID attribute doesn't exist for a user, then it will throw an exception. It won't work. Okay, so that is the purpose of native identity. Technically, we use this native identity in programming or see backend, whatever the operations you are doing. Maybe you are not writing code or anything technically much, but backend there is some code running, right? For that, it needs some identity, an identifier to work on it. That's what native identity is. So business word for that is, for SailPoint guys, account ID. Technically, we call it as native ID. Okay, so you can see the account data like this. When we run the aggregation, every object is created, and object unique ID or name of that or ID of that object is account ID. Name of the object is whatever the account name attribute you select. Account ID should be unique. Account name need not to be unique. Account ID technically we call it as native identity. Account name we don't use it. Okay, because it's not unique. Now going back to the configuration, account schema. So now you have this attributes account ID and account name. By default, it is selected because SailPoint knows what should be account name, what should be account ID. In Active Directory, SAM account name, net or also known as network ID, is the account name. Account ID is nothing but a distinguished name. Of course, SAM account name also will be unique, but in Active Directory, we use distinguished name as account ID. There is a purpose for it. Okay, so we continue using that. In case if you are working on some other connector, if you want to change it, edit schema, it will ask you which one is account ID, which one is account name. You can select here. You can select change and click update. Okay, you can do that. So this is about account schema. So we have covered about attributes. If some attributes, if it is out of the box connector, if you don't have attributes, if some attributes are not using, check with application team and remove them. If they created custom attributes, you need to add them. If you don't add, that's okay. It won't create any error. You missed the data for those attributes, nothing else. Okay, so you ask them and add the new attribute. How do you add? Here I have an icon, I mean the button. Click add a new attribute. Give the name of the attribute. It should be matching. The name of the attribute should be matching with exactly how it will be there, how it is there in application side. Okay, description you can give however you want to, but the recommendation I will give is uh, this display name added, something like that, or display name added by us, or display name which is a custom attribute, something like that. Then you will understand. See, for every attribute, if it is out of the box, there is a description. Tomorrow if you want to know, see, sometimes you might not have, let's say, xyz attribute they created underscore underscore c. So in case if you see underscore underscore c, you can understand that it's a custom attribute. It's not shipped with out of the box product. Sometimes you might not see, in some applications you might not see this underscore underscore c, which is a which denotes that it's a custom attribute. What if you have xyz only? Then what I do, no, even if it is having underscore underscore c, still what I do, xyz attribute xyz for, in case if xyz is not a understandable or business word, then I'll use xyz for display name added by us, something like this I'll write. Or you can say display name, comma, custom attribute, or not out of OOTV attribute. However you would like, however, whichever one you like it. So in future, you will understand this. Okay, these are the attributes we added. Okay, this is how you add an attribute. So entitlement is nothing but you marking this attribute as an entitlement. You can choose the type of the attribute, and if it is a multi-valued, you can choose multi-valued. Okay, so that's about adding the attribute. Removing attribute, actions, delete the attribute. Cool. Next is account correlation. So here you are going to uh, give the uh, mappings so that the account in your application and connecting to the parent object, which is nothing but identity in your IGA product. Since this is out of the box connector, SailPoint already given correlation configuration by default. It will give you. In case if these are not good ways for you, for example, they have used display name. So how this correlation work? First is this level, second is this, third this. If when you run the aggregation, each and every account will aggregate sequentially, one by one. So first this first account, when it aggregates, it will check for, in that account it will extract Sam, it will use Sam account name and try to check with name attribute at identity side. Matching, then cool, this account is tagged to this that identity, whichever identity is matching with this value of Sam account name. In case it is not matching, it will go to mail, second correlation configuration, second level. If it won't work, then it will go to third. If it won't work at, if it didn't find the matching even these three levels or three configurations, then it will be remaining as uncorrelated account or orphan account in business terminology. Okay, you can add one more criteria. Okay, so in case if you have another criteria which you can incorporate, in case if you think that you don't want this, I don't want to use for display name, so I'll remove this as well. Okay, so or else you, if you don't like any of these configurations, you can edit also. So for this you should know unique attributes. If you have enough expertise, you will able to understand unique attributes. If you don't know, ask application team, explain them what is correlation, what it is used for, and show them as well if possible. Okay, so this is how you manage getting the schema so that you can read the data successfully. What are the key takeaways? You need to explain application team and getting the data about schema attributes, account schema. Second, unique attributes you need to know. Third, you need to know correlation attributes so that you can establish the correlation. I mean, you can connect to the account and identity.